My name's Adam Morton, and I've written a couple of books on Snowflake. I've also been lucky enough to speak in front of my peers on a number of occasions. I've lived and worked in the UK, Europe and Australia during my career, and today I'm on a mission to help as many people as I can fulfill their career potential by adding as much value as I can around data strategy and modern cloud data platforms. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about advanced testing techniques using dbt. Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this week's video, I'm going to continue talking you through some of the testing functionality in dbt, and this is some of the areas I've been getting involved with quite recently on real-world projects. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is installing a package, and this package is called dbt_meta_testing. What this does, it helps to ensure you've got the right testing coverage as part of your dbt project. So we'll install this package in a second. I'll show you how to run it, and I'll show you how it can check for the required tests in your project and how you can also override the global project default properties at an individual model level as well. Later on in the video, if you stay tuned, I'll show you how to take a singular test and convert that into a generic test so you can reuse that multiple times. But first of all, let's start with this dbt meta testing. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy the package code out here, and I'm going to go into my packages.yaml file, get rid of this bit. Now this is where you list all the packages you've got dependencies on. Packages, very briefly, if you don't know, they extend the out-of-the-box functionality that you get with dbt. You list your packages in here and the version, and you run a command called dbt deps and execute that. That will then look at the packages, go off and install them into your dbt project. So we'll just give that a couple of moments. And you can see now that package has installed. So the next thing we need to do to be able to get this to help us test in the test coverage within our dbt project is to go into the dbt_project.yaml file. If we come down to our models here, I've got the unit testing model and I've got this customer model here. If I just expand that out, this is what we actually used in the previous lesson. And if you didn't go through the previous video, if you missed it, I'll put a link above now so you can go and check that out. But this is the customer data model that we've got here. What I'm going to do as part of the customer model, I want to tell dbt to use that package we've just installed, the dbt meta testing package, to check for some required tests. In this case, we want to check that it's either got a unique, so anything unique testing, or a not null. We need to put that into quotes, double quotes, and it needs to have at least one of those. So that's what we're telling dbt to do there. If we save that, that's now going to check for the required tests within that customer data model. If I go into my customer.yaml file where I'm specifying the tests, notice at the moment I've commented out a not null test on the nation column within that customer data model. I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm going to just execute the function that's going to test out the coverage of our tests. And to do that, I'm going to run dbt run-operation required_tests. If I go back to the package page and go down to usage, just here, it gives you the variations and the arguments that you can actually pass in. We're just running this portion of it at the moment just to test the entire project for the purposes of this demo. So if I execute this, so obviously we haven't got either a unique or not null test associated with that model, so that particular operation now fails. If I go back into my customer YAML file and uncomment out the not null test that I have here and execute the same command again, this time it should pass successfully, which it does. If I go into the details here, you can see it runs a huge amount of stuff in the background. You don't need to worry too much about this. But this is really useful and this is really handy, and you can also associate this with a pull request as well. So when you're putting your code and checking your code in or merging it in via GitHub or Bitbucket, then you can have this activity check to ensure that the right testing coverage that you expect is on there. If we want to override that at a particular model level, so obviously at the moment this is in our dbt project YAML file, it's going to apply that test to everything in our customer model at this level that we've put it in. If I just go to our customer data model itself, now in here, if I want to basically override that global config in the dbt project YAML file and say this model does not require any tests, then I can just go double curly braces config required underscore tests equals none. Save that. If I then go back into my YAML file for the model and just get rid of those tests and save that, and execute the dbt run operation required tests command again, this time it's going to run. Instead of failing, it's going to pass because we've overridden that behavior, that global behavior at the individual model level. So that's how you use the dbt meta testing package to start helping you test the test coverage within your project and validate that everything's in place. Like I say, you can automate that as part of your development lifecycle when you're looking to pull code and then merge it into your main branch. Next up, I want to talk briefly about a singular test and how we convert that to a generic test. I've been through testing before, the different types of out-of-the-box generic tests and what singular tests are within dbt. I'll put a link in the video just above now so you can check that out if you missed it. Here we'll just do a little refresh on what a singular test is and then why we would want to convert that potentially to a generic test. So back into our project, we have this test folder in the File Explorer. Now this is where our singular test goes. So singular test differs from these kind of tests, which are generic tests, where we're saying tests not null. And we can have unique in there, and we can have relationship as well as accepted values as a standard out of the box test, which is generic. But what if I want to do something custom to my own kind of environment, my own kind of data, and run a query as part of a test to validate my data quality? Well, in that case, it goes under tests. It's known as then a singular test. If I create a new file here, I'm going to call it negative price of orders.sql. All tests again are written in SQL as you do with all of your other models. And I'm going to test my customer data model here, and I want to make sure that the total price of orders is not negative, hence the name. To do that then, it's a simple select statement where I've got total price of orders from curly braces and then reference the customer data model. Where the total price of orders is less than 0. Now, if this test returns anything, dbt will report a failure. So I'm writing this and I'm making this assumption on our data that nothing should have a negative value in terms of our orders. So I've saved that test. We can then easily run that test by typing dbt test -- and when we do dbt run to run a particular model, we go --m and specify the model name, and that will selectively pick the model to run without running your entire project. If you want to do the same or similar functionality using db test, use the select keyword and customer data. So this will run our tests associated with our customer data model, nothing else. So now I'm running that test. Is going to pick up our two tests, our not null test, the generic test that we saw before, plus a selective test, essentially the SQL that we've just written called negative price of orders. These are two tests and they both pass absolutely fine. So all good. But what if then, and this is a question that comes up from some of the customers I work with who are new to DBT and understanding how best to leverage it, what happens if you want to apply this kind of test across multiple tables? Well, ideally you don't want to be copying and pasting this into multiple SQL files, referencing a different table each time, but everything else remains the same. So in order to promote repeatability and good programming practice, you can actually convert this selective test, this singular test, into a generic test. And to do that, what we have to do is we go to our tests folder, and we need to create another folder called generic and place the SQL file in there for our test that we want to run across different tables and columns to apply this test. So to do that, I'm not going to actually go create folder. A little tip is just to go to create file. In here then, you can specify the folder name itself and slash, and we're going to put a name of our test in here for a generic test. And we're going to call it assert negative price of orders.sql and create that. Notice that the folder then gets created for you as part of that. Just a quick way of doing it. So if we go back to our negative price of orders and we copy this SQL out and paste it in here, there's a few things that we need to do. The first thing is, it's very similar to a macro in DBT. You need to tell DBT that this is a generic kind of test. So to do that, we need our curly braces and we use a percent symbol either side, and we tell DBT it's a test and we give it a name. Now instead of typing this, I'll show you how to do it. I try to keep the name of the actual model or test itself the same as what I call the test, just to keep everything in sync and prevent confusion. To get hold of this file name, you can just use the ellipsis here and click copy file name and paste it directly into here. So now we need to pass two different values into this test, this generic test. The first one is model and the next one is column name. And then in our test, we need to use our column name here. So double curly braces, column name. We're going to do the exact same thing in our where clause here. And instead of referencing our customer data table, we can simply replace this lot with model. Finally, we need to end the test by using this kind of approach here. Again, very similar to a macro, and click save. So now we've built our generic test, and you can see what's happening here. It's a little bit like a macro and a function in a database as well. We're passing in a model, a column name. At runtime then, DBT will replace these values, column name and model, with whatever's values are passed in, execute the test, and return a success or failure. Now, how do we actually call this generic test now? Well, if we go back into our customer YAML file, in our columns for our customer data model, we've got this name of our column, total price of orders. And in line with that, we're going to add the assert negative price of orders test. The positioning and indentation on the YAML file, frustrating as it may be when you need to troubleshoot things, it's very important, because in this case, notice that we don't actually have to specify the model or the column name that we're passing to. It's doing that in the background by the position based upon the indentation of where you're placing this test. In this case, it's going to pass through our model name, customer data, and the name of our column, total price of orders, into here. We click save on there, and then we can go and run our test again. So dbt test -- select customer underscore data, execute that. Now this time we should see three tests. We should see the not null test, we should see the original selective test that we've written, and there's our new generic test, assert negative price of orders. If we look into the details here of our logs, We can see then there's our assert negative price of order test, where we've got our select column name and our model name, and our column name again, looking for anything that's negative. We've got our not null test, and a little bit further up we have our original selective test right here. So hopefully you found that useful. That's how you use the DBT meta testing package, installing it, how you check for required tests. As mentioned, you can have that run automatically in the background as part of a pull request, which is essentially a job that can run a slim CI command for you as part of the development lifecycle. And then we looked at then how then you create a selective test and then convert that into a generic test so you can reuse that multiple times. I hope you found that useful. If you did, keep watching, keep subscribing. New videos coming very soon. I also wanted to let you know about our Mastering Snowflake program with myself that we run, and it's an exclusive signature program to help you master Snowflake and learn how to design, implement, and scale solutions in the cloud. And I've designed this program specifically for those people who have either scratched the surface using Snowflake or who are stuck working with legacy on-premise technologies and haven't been invested in by their companies and have fallen behind in their career. And what I've done is packaged up my knowledge and experience of working with Snowflake since 2017 and learning how to package up Snowflake's out-of-the-box capabilities in a way where you can apply them in the real world to address common challenges. So this program isn't about theory. Of course, I need to introduce you to the concepts if you're new to Snowflake, and many of my members are, but it's really about introducing the theory and then in practice how you apply those in the real world. I've been through the pain of understanding what works and what doesn't. Now I've got a formula or a set of recipes, if you like, that show you how to do that. So the Mastering Snowflake program includes in-depth, on-demand video course content that I've created that all include practical hands-on demos. I provide access to all the code, templates, and files that I use as part of those demos, so you can download them and use them freely. You may want to use them in your day-to-day work. You may want to take them and customize them and use them as a starting point. All members on the program get exclusive access to a members-only group where everybody can help each other out and share their knowledge and best practice and get expert advice. Finally, I also carry out a group 60-minute coaching call with all the members, totally optional, where you can ask me anything about Snowflake, data analytics, data strategy, data architecture, you name it, interview advice, and I can help you and give my input and help and support and guidance around that. Finally, you'll get lifetime access to all feature updates. Snowflake's changing and evolving. There's new features and releases every week, and you'll continue to benefit from those updates as well. At a high level, there's 10 modules. This is what we cover, everything ranging from the Snowflake architecture to getting data into Snowflake. And then once you've got data, how do you effectively use it, secure it, share it, and work with it to ensure that you get the maximum value from your Snowflake implementation. If you're interested, I've included the application link in the video description below. If this sounds like the thing that you're looking for and you want to supercharge your career, and if you're ready to take the ultimate step, I'd really encourage you to fill out the application form below.